Hello, this is All Rats at chess.com. I'm here to talk more about Fischer Random Chess, or Chess 960. This is a game I played, a turn-based game, online chess, with my old friend Night Fighter. We started this back in April and finished it shortly thereafter, and I'm finally making a video of it. I'm trying to help popularize Chess 960. I do believe it is the wave of the future, and I'll discuss this game and how I handled it in just a bit. Okay, as I say, Night Fighter is a personal friend of mine. I have known him way back since about May or June of 1968. At that time, I was in the 7th grade, just finishing. He was just finishing the 6th grade, and I had won a district championship for my grade level in my school district, and I learned about an adult club that had just formed, and I went to it, and Night Fighter was going there too, and that's where we met, and we've stayed in touch ever since. So he's basically my longest duration chess friend, and least continuous since 1968. But he was at first against playing this, and then he saw some of my reasons for wanting to play it, so we tried it out. And one of the aspects of Chess 960 is you're basically thrown to the wolves on move 1. You can't count on any opening theory to get you through, because essentially there is none. Well, maybe there is some, but good luck on finding it, at least now. So essentially you're having to plan on move 1 your strategy and everything, and that's a good thing. I believe it'll help anybody play a better game. So let's just talk a little bit about the opening here. What are we going to do? Okay, and what do other people say, and what do I say? Okay, one thing, first off, let's say what other people say. They don't like seeing a queen appear in the corner. One of the drawbacks, they say, is that if you don't get that queen out soon, it'll stay there the entire game, or at least a long time, and then the other opponent will maybe get his queen into play, and you're playing a queen down, and you just can't maybe not be able to defend against the threats the other queen is doing. Now, that remains to be seen, of course. It just depends on how you handle the rest of your game. Now, if they're making these judgments based on blitz games, well, that doesn't, to me, have much credibility, because blitz is just reaction chess, and you keep playing it. Eventually, if you're sharp in tactics, your opponent will make a mistake, and you can capitalize on it and win a game that you might not have won if it was played at a slow time control. And really, Chess 960 deserves, or Fischer Random deserves, to be played at a slow time control. So the fact that you can play an online game here and have plenty of time to analyze it is terrific. And as I've said in my lessons program, that one of the keys to getting better at chess is to play correspondence chess. Because why? Well, it forces you to analyze. And as I said, I took extensive notes in my old correspondence games with strong masters, so that I could have stuff to refresh my memory when the postcard with his reply came, anywhere from 7 to 21 days later. I would be ready, because I couldn't expect to remember everything that I looked at. And I took some notes here. Maybe it's not as many as I would against a really strong master, and that's not a disrespect for Night Fighter. It's just that that's basically all I had time to look at. And I know he took the game semi-seriously too. But what's going to happen is, since we're in uncharted territory, both sides need to develop a plan. And now my basic objective in Fischer Random is, what I would like to do if possible is castle as soon as possible. And that has some pluses and minuses. Now, for instance, right in this position, White can castle on move 1. He can castle queenside. Just move the king on top of the rook and they'll castle. And that's because when you castle queenside, your king and rook end up on the original square or that they would with regular chess. And to castle kingside, you need everything clear between the king and the rook, so that knight on g1 has to move, and the bishop on e1 has to move. And then, provided all the other rules of chess are met, you may castle kingside, and the king will end up on g1, and that rook will just stay on f1. So although I have castled on move 1 before, it was something I just didn't want to do here. I wanted to try to create a plan here, set some kind of an opening up that was reasonable. So objectively, like I say, if I want a castle queenside, I've got to move my king knight or the knight on g1 rather, and the bishop on e1. So which diagonal do we want the bishop on? Well, if I move the f pawn, unless I put the bishop on f2, I'll eventually have an open diagonal against my king, and I didn't really want that right at this stage. So what I elected to play here was d4, and what d4 does is it opens up a diagonal for the bishop. It also stakes a share of the center. And my gut feeling after looking at this move was that black's best move was probably to play d5 and keep the position symmetrical, at least for now. But what often happens in some of these Fischer random games is that if you castle too early, the other side will opposite side castle on you, and then send a pawn roller against your king. And this can be highly effective because you're playing new strategies and new openings, and everything's placed just a little bit differently, and so you're looking at unfamiliar middle game plans, and which can really throw you for a loop. And if you're not careful, those pawns will advance. They'll drive away the pieces that are nearby your king, and suddenly a diagonal will open up, or an open file will occur, and you're defending like mad, trying to keep from getting checkmated. So it can have a lot of interesting features to it that you won't necessarily see in a regular game. And because the opening is random and you're taking the grandmaster preparation and of historical precedent away, you can often, if you're a good player, you can often get a decisive advantage, or at least a clear advantage, right out of the opening, just by analyzing and creating plans and setting up your pieces. You can get a very, very strong position. And so I believe it's a great way to improve your chess. You're not trying to find new moves in well-trodden paths. You're trying to find new moves with your own personal creativity. So Fischer Random Chess is win-win across the board if you're trying to get better, because it will force you to get better, and you'll see just all kinds of potential things to do. So as I was saying, I think the best move for black is to play b6 here, to play d5, but he played b6, and I think he told me he was going to play it hyper-modern style. And b6, you can't criticize it because it does activate his queen at some point. He might want to get that queen out, because I mentioned that could be a problem of getting the queen developed. And what it does is it poses an immediate threat to my pawn on g2. And so I've got my original notes about d4. I just say it opens a line for the bishop on e1, and the plan is to play knight to f3 and castle. And that the white queen, I'll just get it into play later by way of the b1 square, maybe even, or somewhere along the first rank. But anyway, now, since he's playing b6, the natural move is that one wants to play just to develop a piece and get ready for the plan of kingside castling, is to play knight f3. But at the same time, I have to be careful about these pawn rollers I was talking about. And so I analyzed and made a note of what happens if black tries g5. And the idea of g5 is he's going to hit the knight. And there's one nice thing about these pawn rollers that can occur. Oftentimes, they're tremendous. They just drive that piece right back to the first rank because you're in a unfamiliar position. So you have to be careful anytime you put a piece on the third rank that a pawn roller doesn't appear and drive you right back, which is good. It's making you think about chess, and you're not thinking about normal chess opening positions that you're familiar with. So what I analyzed was that what I could do is just take the pawn on g5, and now black runs down here and takes on g2. And if anything, what I can do is I can take on h7, or just play knight g3 and have a good game and leave it at that. But I'm not too worried about g5, but it was something I had to look at. And another possible move here that I note, I say f3 is slow but playable. Now, why is it slow? Well, it takes away from the f3 square away from my knight. It looks like I'm trying to build up an impressive pawn center, but that's something black can oppose easy enough. He can get d5 in on his own, or maybe even f5, and followed by knight f6, and he's countering e4, and then we get this struggle over that square. Eventually I can play c3 and have more power supporting e4. But it's a variation. There's nothing wrong with it, but I chose not to play it. I chose just to play the developing move, knight f3. Okay, so what are we going to do now? Well, it's black's turn, and here he chose to duplicate my move, and he played knight f6. Now, here I played bishop d2, and as it turns out, I'm going to lose a tempo with that move because I chose to do it, and eventually it's going to go to c3. And what are my notes on this? I'm a little bit concerned about knight e4, but not too. But it was something I wanted to note, so I did play bishop d2, but I made notes like, what am I going to do about knight e4? Because what knight e4 does is it says that he wants to collect the bishop pair. Well, I figure if he wants to spend time taking it, that's fine with me, and I've got some notes. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to castle kingside, and then if he takes it, let's see, let me get my notes lined up here a little better. Okay, if he takes, knight takes d2, then I take his knight, and I just analyzed a couple of ideas. I said, what about d5 now? And then I say, well, I'm primed for c4, and then now if he decides that he wants to try to castle too with bishop d7, I'll play c takes d5, and he gets his queen out. And like I say, this is just a sample line of what I was looking at. And now my d4 square is hanging, so I guard it with b4. And now I'm saying black can castle. And then I play e4. And I was happy with this position. I've got a nice pawn center, and the development is basically about even. But I've got a little room to maneuver here. And if this was how the game turned out, then I would have had to play from this position, and I'm not afraid to continue with this. I've got good activity. I can be playing e5 at some point, activating my bishop, and maybe even get d5 in, and then the queen gets a lot more active. But anyway, this didn't happen, and let's go on to what did. Let's see, we got to go back one more. Okay, so I played bishop d2, and he played d6. So again, I was saying earlier maybe he should be playing d5, but he was trying to play this hyper-modern style, and we'll see what happens as a result of that in just a little bit. Okay, so now I castled, and let me see what my notes say. I still have some notes there about him playing knight e4 here. Okay, so knight e4. Now I'm going to play c4, and I've got time to do that. And that activates my bishop, and then if he takes, okay, let's just show it. Knight e4, c4. Now if he takes the bishop, I take back, and now maybe he plays bishop c6, and that's got a threat on g2, right? Okay, so now I can play f3, and I said, well, then black may castle, and I feel that white's okay. I don't have any more notes here, but d5 is playable, e4 is playable, knight g3 developing is playable, and we'll see what happens if this happens. Okay, I'm not too worried about this position. The main thing is I've discovered that I'm not in any kind of danger here. I don't have a serious weakness in my position, and I still have free play, so you don't need to analyze these things out all the way. As long as you're sure that you're safe and sound with what's on the board, then you just keep playing. d5 has some merit to it because maybe I'm going to shut that bishop on b8 in, but anyway, it's not important. So let's see what we did happen. He played, okay, we got to back up, d6. Oh wait, it's white's move. Bishop d2, d6. castle. And then he played bishop d7, and then Swear played c4, and then he castled. So he never did go after the bishop. But now it's time to stop him from going for the bishop and get that knight developed on h1. So I put the knight on g3, and now to a large degree, if you look at the position from except for the A file, it looks a lot like a normal chess game. There's just the placement of the two queens seems a little peculiar. So to a large degree, we've actually reached something that seems familiar. And I've passed by some more notes that I looked at. I'm not going to necessarily go over them. They're there if you want to look at them on your own. As I said, I took a number of notes, and in each case, I was more or less satisfied that with what I did, that I would have a playable position. I never found anything that would cause me concern. When I find something that causes me concern, then I end up with lots and lots of notes, because I'm trying to convince myself that I can find a way to stave off any trouble that I'm in, and usually I do, unless the game just starts to drift on you. But anyway, let's I've got some extensive notes there about some possible lines, but I don't need to necessarily go over all those. I want to kind of get to the main drift of this game and keep the video length manageable. Okay, so knight g3, knight g6. So now it's just time to keep getting pieces developed. So I chose to play b3. Now we have a very, very symmetrical position. Everything on the king side is an exact match. On the queen side, the difference is my pawn is on d4, his is on d6. And then from the A and B files, we have a complete match. We have a mirror image. So for the advantage of the first move, white basically has got a pawn on the fourth rank on the D file, while black only has one on his third rank. So black should still be okay here, but the position could open up for white really, really easily. White could get a nice space advantage if black doesn't handle this carefully. And he could have played c5 here. That basically makes it symmetrical again, but I might be pushing by with d5, and then he looks at his queen and bishop, and they're both hemmed in, so he didn't really want that. Let me just show you. If he plays c5 to try to keep it mostly symmetrical, I can play d5, and now look at the diagonals. My queen on a1 and my bishop on b1 have. They're wide open, and his two guys to match are shut in. So he elected to stay with the hypermodern approach and play cautiously with c6. And now it's my turn, and it's move 8, and I pretty much decided e4 was the best move. And what I thought his best choice here was to now play d5, and I was planning to take with the c pawn and then push e5, and that drives his knight pretty much back to the first rank, although maybe he could play knight e4, but if I exchange on there, his pawn on e4 may become a target. So here's my notes that I was planning. I was going to get my development coordinate a little bit better. Knight e8, rook takes c8, bishop takes c8, then I play queen c3, developing with tempo because I'm attacking the bishop. And then I was going to, after the bishop move, I was going to continue with h4 and an attempt on a kingside attack. That's just my original notes. But he didn't play d5, he played e5. And now, as I was saying earlier, I ended up losing a tempo with my bishop, my dark squared bishop. Now I played bishop e3, or bishop c3, and I've got some pressure on e5. And we're getting down to the point where the game basically got extremely critical for black, and I don't think he totally saw the potential the white position has. Okay, so I've got a lot of long notes here, and of different choices that I had. Let me just scroll by again. See, I was looking at moves like taking on e5, and I've got some extensive notes, and none of those seemed to quite work the way I wanted. So I finally elected on bishop c3. See, I've got other candidate moves, rook fe1, and I played out some continuations. There's another look at rook fe1. You can always pause the video if you're not seeing these. If I went too fast, I'll back up. Okay, so where's the first? D takes e5. Okay, so there's a set of notes. You can pause the video and take a look if you want. And I'm going to get the next set of notes, rook fe1. And you can pause the video and have a look at those. And then there's the next set of notes. You can pause the video and have a look at those. And here's the next set, more rook fe1 stuff. And it goes down to move 16. And there might have been one or two variations that end with black better, and maybe I didn't note it, but I do know that that's a variation that I have to avoid. Here's another look at rook fe1s, and then finally I just guess I wasn't happy. I settled on bishop c3, and he played, in response, he played rook fe8, and this is probably the critical mistake of the game, because it just allows me a very nice continuation. And if you'd like to pause the video and spend about 20-30 minutes on this, analyzing it on your own, it's a great exercise. White to play and do the best he can. So give it a try if you like. Okay, you've resumed the video, and here I have, before I show you the move, here I have a lot of my original analysis on the position. I've got some ideas right there. I could play h4 here, and then he'd play h5. And then I'm looking at 11 c5 is kind of an interesting move. And here I'm looking at c5 again. And there's a continuation out that's kind of lengthy. And, oh, we took it down to move 20. And then I guess this is part of the c5 line. But I don't think I pretty much determined that c5 was my move, and this is the move that just kind of throws black for a loop here. If you found it, good job. And it seems like white gets a clear advantage in all positions. I didn't test this on an engine to see anything what the computer thought. I don't really care to do that. I'll just use my own wits. But after reflection, he chose to play bishop g4, because a lot of those pawn exchanges just don't work out too well for him. Okay, so he played bishop g4, and I know at some point he mentioned that a lot of the moves that he could try would drop a pawn or just get him in a bad game. And so at this point, now I play c takes d6, and this just seems to put him in some kind of a quandary. He's in danger of losing a piece to some potential forks. You can see if bishop takes d6, I might have d takes e5 with all kinds of threats. So there's plenty of poison in here, and he elected to play bishop takes f3. And this is a point where you can pause the video and white to play and do the best he can. Once again, a little quiz. Okay, you've resumed the video. Now, naturally, you're going to probably want to take that bishop back, but I have an interesting Zwischenzug here that just kind of throws him for a loop. I play d takes e5, and now I'm threatening to take the knight off and just mess up the rest of his kingside. And I've got these incredible pawns down the center of the board that are just suffocating him and trying to do all kinds of mean, nasty things to him. So again, I've got some more notes here. D takes e5 was already given, and there's plenty of notes of possibilities, whether he plays knight takes e5 or if he plays knight e7. I'm sorry, knight to d7. I've got all kinds of notes there, and he elected to play knight takes d7, and now I stop and take the bishop. Now, for all my trouble, I'm ahead, 2 pawns. I still have all 8 of my pawns. I have 2 sets of double pawns, but I have all 8 of my pawns, and he's got to try to do something, and taking on e5 just falls short, and I guess I have some notes on that. If he takes on e5, I have f3, and then he might. I think there were some ways that worked and some that didn't. I don't remember all the notes, but I think here we're getting to better line. If he takes on d5, I'll give up 1 bishop, then sink my knight in on f5, and he just gets in really in a bind in a hurry. So he elected to play knight f4 here, and now he's threatening. Well, he's not threatening it, but I allow him to go win the exchange. And of course, I have a mirror image of it across the board, but really black's in a lot of difficulty here. So don't even need to show you any of the notes. The game's almost over. So he elected to check on e2, and I just parked the king over here in the corner, and he took on c1, and now I just take the knight back. This is perfectly logical. Now I'm down the exchange, but I have 2 pawns for it. I'm threatening to win the exchange back, and black really doesn't have anything to show. His position is just falling apart. He still can't develop his queen and his bishop, and my queen and my 2 bishops are doing quite well, although the one on b1 is a little blocked right now. But he decided he'd save the exchange, but unfortunately it just runs into a tactic, and I'll let you pause the video one more time and see if we can find it. White to play and do the best he can. And here's, now you resumed, the answer is knight takes g7. And this just collects a 3rd pawn for the exchange, and suddenly black is just in serious trouble. If he takes the knight, I have e6 check, and the attack continues, and there's really nothing that black can do here to survive. His kingside position is wrecked, so Knight Fighter elected to just abandon the game and resign and focus on his other games. So there, just a 17 mover against somebody that if I was playing a regular correspondence game with, I'm sure the game would be dead even at move 17 and probably dead even at move 27, maybe a slight advantage for one side or the other. But that I guess is the beauty of Fischer Random Chess, because you're forced to stop and analyze things for your own. So it's something I highly recommend. Now, every now and then I get challenged on chess.com. I had to shut challenges off because I'm not looking to play there. I play sometimes here and there, but it's not been my intention to really become an active or try to get these really high ratings or something. That's not my style. I'm here to promote chess and help people get better. But I did put on my coach's page at chess.com that I'll play Fischer Random for $5, and that's a pretty good deal. And for the $5, I do require a minimum turnaround of 6 days. And after the game, I'll make a video of it, just like I did here. And nobody's accepted that, and if nobody accepts it soon, I'm going to raise the price to $20. So consider that if you really want to have a game against me, now's your chance to do it, because I'm going to raise the price if nobody's buying, because I figure if they really want it bad enough, they'll pay what I ask. And I'm not greedy or anything, but I think it's a heck of a deal to play a game for $5 and give you a video. But we'll see what happens. But anyway, Fischer Random is really, really fascinating, and because there's 960 different positions, well, actually 959, one of them is our initial starting position. Since there's 959 different positions to play, you're always going to be coming up with something new and unique. And that's what chess is about. It's about moving your pieces, develop your pieces, finding good squares, probe the enemy position to try to provoke a weakness, and once you get a weakness, hammer down on it, create another weakness. You got your 2 weaknesses, go in and win the game. And why have to rely on 30 moves of theory and ask yourself, well, how do I win this? No grandmaster ever won this position. Well, we're not grandmasters. We don't need to play what they're doing. We'll just play chess. So that was my correspondence game with Mr. Night Fighter, my good friend, and I'm going to get some more Chess 960 or Fischer Random Chess games up soon. I just have to log on to the servers that have it. I've found a few new ones that actually have it. Unfortunately, chess.com doesn't have it unless you play online chess. I'd like to play some live chess with it. Maybe they'll add it soon. I expect they will eventually. When they do, I'll be playing it because I think it's something that we can all learn and improve our chess with. All right. I thank you so much for your time. I look forward to making another video for you very, very, very soon. Take care.